everybody. So we've got an exciting day today because I feel like UI UX is always a hot topic. But my name is Nikki Caboose. I'm the VP of Development for Palm Beach Tech. And I'm going to really quickly share my screen so I can do my intro here. Let me know if for some reason you cannot see this. There we go. So this morning we are doing Introduction to UX UI with Jessica. And please tell me if I'm totally ruining this. Is it Tortolano?
Perfect.
Yay. Okay. Jessica Tortolano, head of UX UI at Wyncode. And thank you again to Wyncode because they've done a few workshops with us. So a little bit about Palm Beach Tech. We just recently, in July, actually expanded to become a South Florida organization. So now we have members from Miami to Martin County, which has been really exciting to go through that whole transition. And our whole goal and mission is to build South Florida into a tech hub. So a little bit about that. First, here's our community creed. Palm Beach Tech is wholeheartedly committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, and inclusive community for all. We put inclusivity first, engage with others, and are considerate to all and don't sell to people. So in short, we want to make sure that anybody in our tech community feels welcome. And happy to say, actually, one of the diversity efforts we did was in partnership with Wyncode for their hackathon recently. So thank you guys for including us in that as well. A little bit about our membership. So we are a corporate member-driven organization. We currently have a little over 200 corporate members, and they are from our seed stage startups all the way to our large, like Office Depot, Florida Crystals, these huge local companies. Just to show you, here's a few of our premier members. You can see Jupiter Medical Center, Nextera, Office Depot, Boca Code, Sama, Brick. I mean, there's a ton of them here locally, again, Miami to Martin County. And not going to go through all of these, but I've got a couple things bullet pointed here for our memberships, corporate memberships. We do a lot of different speaking opportunities, such as workshops like this, 2 different panel discussions, our tech talks, a member platform that is exclusive to our members, and a ton of other benefits, which if you're interested, whether in membership or any of our events or anything that we have going on, you can go to palmbeachtech.org. Again, not going to go through every single one, but real briefly, on average in a week, we've got 4 to 5 events, from our tech talks on Mondays, community coffees, which are panel discussions on Tuesdays. We also highlight either business, tech, or startup leaders for our podcasts on Wednesdays, and then educational workshops on Fridays, in addition to our member exclusive peer groups, which Monica leads the efforts there. So got more than enough stuff for everybody to get involved in. And resume distributors. So just talking to Jason about this a second ago, but anybody that is looking for a job, we actually have a tab on our website. Again, it's palmbeachtech.org that says talent. Underneath that tab, there's a job board with actual job listings from a bunch of our members. And then right underneath that, there's something called a resume distributor. So even if you don't find a specific job that you're looking for there, if you're still interested in just getting your resume out to a bunch of our member companies, you can actually just upload your resume and it goes to everybody all at once. So definitely that's a good resource to get connected here locally. And last slide here is we have a very active Slack channel. So anybody is welcome. It's southfloridatech.com/Slack. Or if you'd like to be added to our Monday e-newsletters that go out every single week, you can actually just text us and text your email address to 561-250-7206. And I am going to stop sharing my screen here. Here we go. And I want to hand it over to Jessica. If you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your background, about Wyncode, and then of course, feel free to take it away, and you can feel free to share your screen as well. Oh, and I think you're on mute still, Jessica.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so let me just I'm pulling up my screen. Let me know if you can see that. Okay, well, again, thanks everyone so much for coming. Thank you, Palm Beach Tech, and for inviting us always. This is so fun, and congratulations on expanding a little bit more, across the region. It's a really exciting time for South Florida. So you've probably seen a lot of chatter out there. Social listening tells me that this market is heating up more than I think it ever has been. I've been in South Florida for almost 20 years. Since the year 2000, I moved here from the Northeast. I started UX UI. I was just telling the girls that I started when UX started. So in the 90s, probably like about 98, 99 is when I officially became, you know, a usability specialist was my title at the time. And so, yeah, I've been doing this a really long time. It's a great career, lots of job security because there's always new devices on the market. And there's always a need for more streamlined user experience because if you're trying to sell things or get people to sign up for anything, it's really important. But with that, I did leave for a couple years here and there. I went to the US Virgin Islands for a couple years. I did go out to San Francisco to just hang out with some of the giants for 3 years. And then in between, kind of came back and forth to South Florida and, absolutely love it here. I'm a fan. I could definitely work for anybody who represents Florida. I'm a huge fan. And I think we have so much potential here. In fact, the first thing that I said in my interview process with Joe and Yuha, who are the founders of Wyncode, was that Miami is so beautiful and we have so much art. Why can't we be known for world-class digital product design? And I said, that was 3 years ago. And I actually think that goal is going very, very well. So we have lots of great success stories. We've completed 12 cohorts at Wyncode, which is amazing. I don't even know how many students that is, but in terms of how many people's lives we've changed, and not just with the UX UI class, but the web development, it's a lot. So I'm really excited, really proud to be part of the organization and all the entities and organizations that Wyncode is part of, like, for example, Palm Beach Tech. So my name's Gessica Tortolano, and that's a little bit more than I probably was going to share about myself. But let me know, jump in, feel free to ask any questions. Judah's here also from Wyncode. So I've given him permission to stop me if anyone has questions, and Nikki and Monica, same for you as well. Well, let's talk about what is UX UI, just in case anyone here wants a little bit more on, what is this all about? The event today is going to really focus on the prototyping process, which is a critical piece to UX and UI. But I think it's probably worth talking about some of the fundamentals first. UX is a problem-solving framework that puts the user at the very heart of that process. It is anticipatory. It should be delightful and purposeful to interact with. The other side, a little bit more on that, the background of UX. So what is UX? User experience. User experience is really how something works. It's the blueprint behind the product that you're probably interacting with at any given time on a website or a digital app. And those come in the form of flowcharts or sitemaps. There's a lot actually that goes into UX, even screen designs in black and white. We do wireframes that I'll share a little bit later with you. On the other side of that, or as the continuation, UI, which stands for user interface, is really like the graphic designed piece of the UX. So it's how something looks, it's how it transitions, it's what brings the UX to life. It is what makes it beautiful and fun to interact with. And you see the comparison. We have the flow chart in UX that then determines how beautiful and how this product in the end was designed and laid out in those screens. Okay, the one thing that I always preach in my classes is process. So I believe one of the most difficult things for companies or design teams or development teams is inertia and momentum. So the UX framework is a framework that I put together based on all my years of working in this field and how to get this project moving. Because a lot of times we would kind of just stop and overthink things. So the framework is based on design thinking by IBM, like hyper island methodologies, agile, a lot of those, bringing those together into some sort of process that's basically, I always call it our Google Maps for the project. So that would include a learn phase where we're going to do a little bit of desk and field research before we start anything, before we even start designing our screens. Then in the define phase, that's where now that we've learned something, maybe it's about our market, maybe it's about our users, then we can start to really lay that out, define it, even up until, like, for example, the flow chart that you saw. So now that we have that information, we can then move into design, where we can start putting sketches together, wireframes, and then even mock-ups. Experiment and iterate is one of my favorite parts. It's the loop or the feedback loop that you may or may not be familiar with in design thinking practices or lean UX. But I think the most important part of being user-centered is including users. And a lot of times people don't want to do that. It's probably because they're a little scared to hear what's going to happen. What if I spent all this time designing something and then people don't like it? Well, that's why we want to make sure to intercept that whole thing from falling apart really early on in maybe hand-drawn sketches or black and white wireframes. But we'll always continue to include our users, which makes us user-centered. And then that process, once it's completely refined and we feel 100% confident in our product, well, maybe not 100%, I'd say like 90%, even before you launch it, you might still want to learn and collect data after you launch. But we do support the launch and the handoff to development. And we work really closely with them to make sure that the product that's developed looks like the product that was designed. And that's our full framework, our process. This is our Google Maps for how we get from point A to point B. It's a really important skill to have, just getting teams to move forward. It's one of the most biggest challenges that I've seen throughout my career. It's like, what do we do next? So that's why I put the framework together based on a lot of different frameworks. You'll see that there's tons of design frameworks and processes out there. I think it's not like which one is the right one. It's whatever one works for you and your team or your company. So I want to just jump over to Figma is a tool that we use to do wires, prototypes, and mock-ups. And I'm going to just kind of walk everyone through the process. But any questions so far? I'm just going to escape out of this and bring this down here. Okay, so
so you mentioned like frameworks and it's not really important like which one you use, but I was just wondering, like, because I haven't really gotten into like React or Vue or whatever, but as far as like a learning curve, do you have opinion on either one of those? Just because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time like on the learning curve.
Yeah, if that was Jason, thanks for your question. So I think you might be, are you talking about like development frameworks? This is more like a process, maybe that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but let's replace the word framework with process. It's really just the steps you take to get through, rather than jumping into development right away without any planning, though that process that I shared would be what you want to go through before. If you're a developer and engineer, ideally a lot of that stuff has been figured out before you get it. And you as an engineer would be involved in various pieces of that process. Okay, great. Okay, so I have this file here, and I'm not going to create anything here. I just want to kind of give you a little bit of a tour. But like I said, the process is really important. And you saw that that process, it's not necessarily linear, by the way. It's at times you could parallel path. You're going to loop a lot. We call it the feedback loop. And you're probably going to change things a lot. So if you are adverse to change, you might have to get used to a little bit more change, and you should embrace it because it actually makes your products come out a lot better. I hear students say it all the time. They're like, oh, my first version is fine. And I'll say, did you try any others? I'm like, nope, this one is perfect. And then fast forward maybe 4 or 5 days, they'll say, come into class and say, you know what, this is so much better than the one I did on Monday. And in between, they may have done 50 other versions. And then that's when we hug and embrace. And I'm like, yay, you get the process. So user feedback is so critical. But the first thing in the process would be just applying design basics. What are those best practices? What about a form? How should my form be laid out? If I want someone to buy something or sign up for something, which is a conversion, right? You want it to be really straightforward and user-friendly. The next thing that I do after all the research and the things that I shared with you in the process is just starting with navigation. Starting with your nav for your screen is one of the most important first steps. I always recommend exhaust all your options. So you're going to want to stress test with different content. You're going to want to try lots of different layouts. Then once we get that navigational system in place, then we can start moving through the creation of the wireframes, which are wireframes are black and white. They do not, and on purpose, include real content, real photography, or any colors. And the reason why is so that we can stay hyper focused on how someone should flow through the digital product. So I'm sure all of us here have had examples of going through maybe buying something online or buying tickets or signing up for something that was just like confusing and not quite intuitive. And, you know, that's what we aim to try to figure out before we even start applying colors and putting all that stuff together. So I always use this analogy. What if you had the construction crew show up to the land without a blueprint? You know, would you do that? Like, would you just have the cement trucks and your contractors and your electricians and your interior designers just meet on day one? Probably not. That building wouldn't turn out that good. So that's the best analogy that I could share with you guys. After doing the wireframes, even in black and white, we're going to create flows with the prototype interaction design, which is what IXD stands for, and then continue to test and iterate on that product over and over and over again. And then we can move into UI and kind of go through that same process all over again. All right, so speaking of navigation, this is one example here where you see that I've tried a couple different nav options, not extremely, the main difference here, and I would probably do a few more of these. Like I didn't really change how you go from the home page into, let's say, a list of something. So think about e-commerce. I come into a website, I'm on the home page, and I click on kitchen. And in there is going to be a list of kitchen items. Then I click on a product and then I go to a detail page, like for example, a whisk. So this is walking me through, this nav on top is walking me through the navigational flow without getting caught up in what's on the screens yet below the nav at that time. So one of the things here is, let's say there's categories. You know, for example, I used e-commerce. So let's say these are e-commerce categories. That could be a way to help push people through finding the product that they need. And so that was the little change there that I made. And I also added in this one a search bar. And I would try these out in multiple ways. So definitely want to tackle your navigation first. It is really how people are going to go through the wayfinding of either getting to a product or buying it. And notice that it remains very focused at the end. For example, like if this was travel, getting to that detail, like let's say it's travel to Miami, and you're gonna navigate to, you know, book your trip to Miami. Notice that the nav now stays really focused on the user goal, which is, what do we want them to do? Book it. So rather than just repeating the global nav that may or may not assist you in the task as a user that you're trying to accomplish. So first and foremost, navigation, super important. Now moving across here, and you see how I've just set up this Figma file here to be just this big kind of open canvas, big whiteboard where I'm trying out lots of things. And if you remember, I had mentioned about wireframes, we have the black and white. And mine probably get a little bit more refined just because I've been doing this a long time. But again, it still removes imagery, colors, things that will get you hung up if you start focusing on them too soon. Couple different home pages. So again, starting with the nav, now we have a nav option. I've applied it here. And I'm going to start sketching out, hand drawing probably before, then come into here and digitize it into wireframes. And one of the most important things to do is keep people, provide people with a clear path to completion. So if again, for example, this is like a camping website, then give me one thing to do per screen. And this would be a great example for mobile. Desktop has a little bit more real estate, so you might be able to have other secondary actions, but you still want to provide people with a very clear step. What should I do next? And in this case, it's find camping. And that's why that we call them a primary CTA, or call to action. Is really what's standing out here. And we have hierarchy with our titles, what content is going to go in there, and then again, how you flow through that. So as I started with the top half of the home page, I'm trying, like, again, just lots of different options. Should there be a search underneath? What if, you know, there was a CTA secondary, get your trial? If this was like a dating website, find my match is primary, but maybe secondarily. And I don't want these to compete. So that's something that I definitely wanted to make sure that I don't want to put the user in a position where they have analysis paralysis, we call it. Like, they're analyzing and they're not sure what to do next. So just, it's, you know, I always use the old maid example where it's like you stick the card way up and you're like, pick this one, pick this one. That's what this one is doing, is calling my attention, because as a business need, that's the flow I want them to go through. And then we have different modules showing up here down below, benefits of signing up, maybe even some recently added matches, for example, if this was dating. So we have lots of different examples, lots of different homepage options. Something else I really like doing is, so this is now a more blown out homepage where there's a little bit more content. I'm scrolling through, and then notice that I have two other options over here. An alternative to the best camping ever. It's just alignment, really. I'm just trying different alignment with the text. And then on the second module that says matchmaker, take the quiz, or choose your camper mode, Those would be two ways of getting into, let's say, for example, a Quizlet that would tell me where I should go camping, or who I should be matched with. And instead of going into a quiz, like a CTA launching me into the quiz, what if we could surface the quiz options in the first question right in that module? So if I click on, I'm a rugged camper, boom, I click on it and I jump into the quiz. So again, just exhausting all my options, trying out different things, and then again, just filling this out in more detail. For example, like lots of hierarchy happening here inside the wireframes. And I always say, if it doesn't look good in black and white, it's not going to look good in color. So you have to, and I think that's something that students will struggle with, like, oh, this doesn't look good. It's probably because I haven't done the color part yet. And it's like, maybe not. Make it look good in black and white, and do your user testing, gain that level of confidence, and you'll be good, because then once you add color, it will be a lot easier. Okay, so now we have our home page, which ultimately most websites are structured in this way, where you have a home page, a category page, or a list of things, which would be the category page here for camping. And notice I used that nav here at the top. Different card systems, different ways of laying out. It could be an image on the left with content on the right, or we could do a more enlarged, almost Instagram-y version where you have big images here in the category. Once we have the list of options, users are probably going to want to click on something. Okay, tell me more about that product, that campground, that match, whatever it is. And we call that the PDP, or I guess it depends what it is. In this case, product detail page. But I always adjust. So like if it's like campground detail page, it's just a detail page. And so we have now the layout here of something. And these are just placeholder things. So, you know, it might not necessarily, cabbage may not be something that makes sense for Brandon's campground, but it's just a placeholder to go through a flow of how would the user interact with these pages. Something else to note here is that we try to follow a grid. And the grid is what's going to keep your pages, your screens well organized and make sure things are aligning. What you'll notice is that I'm a big left aligner. Left alignment is the more proven model when it comes to laying out content. Centered text makes your eye, if you look at eye tracking, it will kind of bounce it back and forth. So you'll notice that, I think these are just left over from something. Let me delete those. Notice that pretty much everything is falling on that first grid line. So following a grid is really cool and important, and it does help you with your aesthetic. Now, in terms of, again, navigation, I had a hamburger menu, which I don't know if you guys know, but that's called the hamburger menu, the 3 lines. And when the user clicks on that, I always, like in my process, I'm always asking like, okay, user does something, system does something back. So the user clicks on the hamburger menu or taps on it. The system is going to open the navigation menu. And the hamburger will provide you with more options in there. So since it's mobile, we want to keep the top of the page nice and clean. Couple different options here again. There really aren't huge differences here, but notice login and register at the top on the left, whereas I have search here instead, and then login and register at the bottom. And then maybe even a little bit of changes here with the background. All right, now let's say, let's actually go here into some of these animations. So step one, I've hand drawn everything out. Now I'm in the wireframe phase and I want to test out the flow. So I'm going to show us, let me just demonstrate here this prototype flow here. Let me go here. And we have, let me actually use this one. Okay, so in Figma, you can actually prototype, and that's what you're seeing here. And I'm not going to necessarily focus a lot on how to create these. It's pretty straightforward. Anywhere that you have these little dots, you drag your connector to whatever screen that button, function, link should go to. But I do have these already set up. So I want to say, let's see how this product is going to flow together. Figma is a great tool that it allows you to do all of this together in one. And notice that it even puts it in a nice device. So it's actually, it's pretty accurate. You can send it to yourself and then actually open it on your phone and bring it out and test it, you know, if it's a mobile website or a mobile app. Okay, some cool stuff to note. This persistent nav. So I want to stick the nav, and that's one of my interactions that I'm prototyping to test out. One of the things, keeping your nav close by if you have long scrolls is really important so that people always have a way to find things and don't get lost and get like too far down a page and not know how to move forward. Okay, so that's the persistent nav, and I'll show, basically it becomes a fixed item in your Figma file. And when we go back to the design out of the prototype, I'll note that. So let's look at the flow here. So we have different modules. I see, you know, some different offerings here. Great, there's a big search bar, a search button down at the bottom, and we also have a search up here. So if I want to explore, I can click on that. And then I'm going to be taken to this new page. And if you remember, this is the category page. So I have all the different options for camping here. And I also have a fixed nav item up here at the top. So I can show this to people. I can show it to my coworkers, friends and family. The closer you get to your real users, the better, I would suggest. You can find people out, you know, on LinkedIn. There are others, there's like usertesting.com. There's lots of different services that you can find real users to test out. But you know, you can test black and white wires just for flow. So from the home page, I go to the category page, and let's say I'm interested in Brandon's campground. And now I'm going to click on that. And then now I'm at the detail page. And I would probably, I haven't done it yet because I'm going to show you guys. But this nav, I would stick it. And just like the other ones, because that book button, I want that front and center for the user all the time. That's the most important CTA. That's my close on the conversion. All right, so now with that said, also showing me how to get back and forth. So the common behavior of going from a bunch of options into a detail, you want to facilitate the back and forth. Because if you've ever had, like if you ever used Craigslist, like that process of jumping back and forth is a little bit less user friendly. They might have fixed it now, but like, let's say I was looking for apartments, I would click into an apartment and then go back, and it would jump me back to the page, the top of the page. And that would be really, then I'm scrolling to get back to the one that I left off from. And that facilitation is broken then. So we want to make sure to go do that back and forth. So I click into something else, then I go back. I scroll down, I click into something else, and then I go back. So that's that facilitation. Now let me go back. So that's a really cool, that's a great example of just a page-to-page connection. And let me just note a couple things. So you see the line drawn there. And then inside here, Figma is awesome. It has all these different functions here. I could set it up to be a smart animate. I could do instant. I usually stick with instant. You want to, and I'm going to just show how what that difference looks like here. So this is experimentation. This is just trying out the different things. So there, that's instant, which you know, it just goes from one screen to the next. But what if, and I probably wouldn't do this, and I'm going to show you why, but let's say dissolve is something that, and I just want to show what that difference is. So it's just a slight, almost like transparency happening between the two screens. So I'll do that again. Notice that though, it doesn't seem right because the find your campground gets left behind. So it is, again, purposeful interactions that you want to be conscious of. So I'm going to change that back to instant. Okay, the sticky nav or the persistent nav. I'm going to go back to design. If you ever want to fix any items, one thing to note is that there's actually a white background behind that. So because if we don't have that, then what's going to happen is all the content is going to go interfere with the navigation. And so if I show you this item over to the right where it says fixed position when scrolling, one, you just need to make sure your page is long enough to scroll and that you actually have a scroll, because if you don't, that won't even show up. And you want to make sure you don't have any interference. So let me example that. So like, let's say I delete that white background and then go back to this prototype.
Jessica, just so you know, you've got a question there in chat too, that just came up during the section. Delkesh said, sometimes users have difficulty navigating wireframes. How do you navigate that for usability testing?
Yeah, so you definitely want to set it up. You know, you want to say, hey, thanks for, you know, joining this user testing. We're going to use all your feedback to make this product better and better every single time. And so first of all, you know, gratitude and thankfulness is always important, but make sure that they understand this isn't the final product. So hey, this is a wireframe prototype. It's just black and white, but we want to get your feelings on flow. And you want to try to put as much information in that will at least make sense. So if this was all lorem ipsum, yeah, you might not get good feedback. So I have enough here, image of campground, the name of the campground, the location, the rating, how many people rated it. And I'm going to ask them to complete a task. So you want to give them a task. And then in your wireframes, just make sure that it's clear, relatively clear, lacking the colors and the photography, how they're navigating through. So little pieces of real content is okay to put in here so that you can guide the user. But otherwise, you're going to end up spending a lot of time and money, and companies don't like those words, right? Who likes to hear their budget's going to be over or their schedule is going to be off? Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, great. It's the amount of detail that you put in. It should be just enough. We did it for the Miami Heat. We did lots and lots of wireframes when we were a few years ago when I was designing the Heat app with Sapient. And it was, yeah, we brought it to games. We had black and white wireframes and we just asked people like, hey, if you wanted to find the score, what would you do? And then we kind of observe them do it. And so that's a good thing to do. Okay, so back to the scroll. See what happened there? Yeah, that's why we want to put that white box behind. So that's something to just note, be conscious of the reality of, you know, what you're really trying to do. So by adding that as a fixed position when scrolling item, but make sure you have that white background there. All right, so I'm going to delete that one because that's a bad example. And then again, here, same thing. So we have, this is your nav. And if I did want to fix it, same idea, because I want that book button. So if I gave like Nikki, hey, welcome to the user testing. I can't wait to get your feedback. Where would you go if you wanted to book this campground? And then Nikki would probably say, you know, like, oh, maybe the book button, hopefully. Yeah. And so then but notice that if I scrolled away before I fix it, so here, let's just go do that again. If when I'm testing Nikki, if she went like that and scrolled past the nav and I said, so Nikki, where would you click or tap to book the campground? You might, because it's not there front and center, she might not know. It might be like, I don't know, maybe I have to go down further, or maybe it would be like, oh, I just scroll back up because she remembers seeing it. But something we like to do is provide, you know, guidance for people and users, and we don't want them to have to overthink things. So I'm going to make that persistent. And, but again, I would need to put the white background. So I'm going to just add my little rectangle or my relatively large, and then just make that white. And then that would actually need to go inside there in this grouping, which is the detail nav. And that's actually a component. And I'm not going to talk too much about components because that's sometimes a little confusing, but oh, I think my layers are off there. So let's see, where did that go? Oh, it's back down there again. I think I have to group this in with the components. So let me group that, Command G. Yes, and that should do it now. Let's try this. And something that I noticed that I complain about a lot is that you have to move this little play button around to make sure that when you go into prototype mode, that you've selected that's the page I want to see. And there it is. Now I have the book. So then if Nikki scrolls down and she doesn't see the book button, I'm like, I should probably make sure that that book is always there front and center. And then she has it right there with her. So we're getting all that worked out before we move into more pages, because that's probably the most critical piece there, is that flow. Okay, so now I like this example.
Jessica, can I ask a quick question there?
Absolutely.
So, and as you know, I'm very non-technical myself, so sorry if this is a dumb question, but no, just as you were talking, I was thinking there's so many websites or apps where I use where they have the book button everywhere. I think maybe so that it's always kind of in your eye there and you know where to find it, but sometimes it comes across very salesy, which turns me off. Yeah. Why do more companies not utilize it this way? Because it's still just one button, so it's still in your face, but doesn't seem overwhelming. Yeah, I'm just curious like, why somebody wouldn't do it that way. Yeah.
You know, I guess they just might not know. And they're just trying the best they can. And they just don't have a user experience person or someone, or they didn't do the testing. That's usually what it is. Yes, thank you. That's when they need to hire.
That's why they need to hire one, exactly.
Yeah, so it's so crazy. Like when you're looking at digital products, you think a whole bunch of professionals were behind it. Not always. You know, a lot of companies go straight to development and they start off with a developer just, you know, grabbing some things, and he or she has his own things to tackle. So, you know, these things aren't top of mind for them. So that's a great question. Those are opportunities. That's a great way for actually anyone looking to get into design. You know, go out there and see the smaller businesses in South Florida are starting to become like great opportunities. I saw Rolls-Royce is hiring a UX UI designer in West Palm Beach or Wellington, I think. And, you know, that's really cool. It's it's not, I don't think it's a global roles position, but that I thought was really cool because now you're starting to see the little smaller pieces or sub companies really focusing on that. Okay. Yeah, and that's right. Sometimes the company, the business need and the user need don't align. And so you want to make that overlap. So let's get the business and the user needs to align and overlap in a way that doesn't skew or remove one from our focus. I wanted to show also here on the hamburger menu. Let me bring this one back here. I think that's, oops. You see it gets very spider webby there. All right, so now let me select this and then I'll walk us through I think this way. Yeah, the hamburger nav. So that transition, I'm going to do it again because it happens really fast. So in my user testing, I'm asking, hey, if you needed to find another section in the website, what would you do? Don't click anywhere before you do. Tell me why and what you expect to happen. And that's a really good way to make sure you're not leading people to do, to give you positive feedback. Because if you're like, so click on the 3 lines up in the corner and then click on the find camp, you know, you're leading the witness down the path and then you don't really get good feedback. So again, just clicking into that menu, notice that it slides over from the left. So that's a great transition. You can use overlays with Figma or Smart Animate, which is basically doing, if anyone's familiar with the old Flash days, like an animation from one screen to the next. And then I'm going to also make sure that the person can get out of this screen. Because have you ever been trapped in the screen? Like that's, you know, it's like, oh no, what do I do? Close the website and go somewhere else, unfortunately. So there it is, I'm closing it out. And I know that we're running a little short on time here. So that was one option. Oops, sorry about that. One option of navigating from the hamburger menu. But let's see, what is that setting there?
Jessica, you also have another question in chat there. Arsh says, can you please repeat, how did Toy fix the header in prototype? Or how did you fix the...
How did you fix, yeah. So great question. And again, just a really good one here. Make sure you have the artboard select, or not the artboard selected, the element here selected. And then there's this option over under constraints that says fix position when scrolling. So you could do that on anything. You could, you know, let's say, you know, those little chat bubbles on the bottom, like, you know, contact us today. That could also be just there. And as you scroll through content, it remains. Or like, let's say, let's do what Nikki was talking about, which is, hold on, put the book button everywhere. So let's say I wanted to also have this stay, let's see, where is that? Fold. So something that, there's pros and cons to every tool, but one of the things that some of the other programs do better is tell me where the fold is without me having to do the measurements. But let's say that's the fold there. I think that one thing that you may need to do is group your items. If you don't see that fixed position, so I'm going to say that book is going to be fixed. Now it's probably not going to look right because I'm not sure where the fold is. But let me just demonstrate over here. Okay, so now both of these are fixed, which is probably too much. I probably wouldn't do this in real life, but I just want to give you the example. See how that book button is now stuck in the middle of the screen. That's not where I would want it. I would move this down. I can't remember where that fold is. I could do math and all that, but see, I just got to keep moving it down. But it's a really, really good tool. It's a great function for users. Okay, couple other things here. All right, this is a fun one too. So speaking of this process, all right, hold on. So this is, let me go into prototype, and notice that you got to toggle between design and prototype. All right, I need this little blue play button. And now another thing that I would maybe do is, let's show how somebody would check out. You know, so you have your beautiful forms, best practices by Luke W. happening here. And then if I, there's probably a submit button down below, I hit it, I go to the next step, and then notice a big place order CTA at the bottom. So again, I'm just asking for feedback on that flow. Shipping, and then payment, and then, you know, give me feedback. Does that make sense? Is there anything missing? And I would ask the users. Now, something else, again, just connecting it back to that persistent item. Okay, so in this one, instead of book, it's add to cart. This is and that would stick. I didn't make it stick yet, but I want to use this more as a demonstration of how this is going to go into the checkout process. So I say add to cart, and then maybe it goes into the first step. I don't know, it probably wouldn't. It'd probably ask me if I want to check out, and I'll show that example. But notice that that one comes up from the bottom. So you can try out lots of different transitions. And speaking of, this is really cool. These are used with overlays. You can do something like this. So let me walk through. Oh, I need that play button again. Come back. Okay. Definitely, this is my theory on this, is that it's a copyright issue from other programs, that you can't just select the artboard and go straight into the play mode. But so again, I explore. I thought maybe I have it here. So in this one, I actually created this as a carousel, which Figma allows me to do. I can activate this to be a click through to the product, the cabbage detail page. And then now let's say I can scroll down. I have my sticky add to cart, right? So that's always there in case I forget. I add to cart. And then now that I'm in the mockups, because I did all my awesome testing, I get this overlay that grays the back out so I stay focused. And it says, great, this has been added to your cart. Would you like to keep shopping or check out? So good, again, good little things to test out. And then some other cool things. Oh, let me show you guys. So tabs, and I'll be honest, just all you have to do if you ever need a reminder on how did she do that? If you just Google Figma tutorials, you'll find quite a lot of stuff there. So it'll be really, really cool. But in this one, I'm doing an animation of tabbing through different sections. And because I use Smart Animate, it does that almost like the Flash Days animation, and it will move you through different sections of content. And notice that the on state transitions. So I really like that one too with Smart Animate. And then maybe one of the more complex things to do in Figma, and we'll kind of just like probably end it off here, is a carousel. So this is a carousel and it's on a drag function. So I actually have to create 3 different artboards with these images in the correct place. But how cool is that? It's pretty accurate. It changes the dots. So it's, you know, going through an accurate representation of what section I'm in, but it's keeping the content static, and that's different than this. This is a scroll effect. This is a carousel effect. And I'll just show you how, you know, that requires 4 different screens just to do the carouseling. And you notice like each grouping of photos is just shifted over. Okay, so I know it's 11 o'clock. I wanted to open up to questions, but I don't even know if do we have time for that? Great, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, so, oh yes, thank you, Stephen, for your comment there. Yeah, so I mean, we're right at time right now, but I mean, if anybody has any questions, I mean, please feel free to ask it. I mean, we can always, you know, I'm fine with going over a couple minutes here. It's not a big deal. And we are also recording this. So it will be put up in our YouTube playlist for workshops, and then also sent out to anybody, excuse me, anybody that's RSVP'd. So you will get a copy of this as well.
Yeah, and I'm just, while we're doing that, I'm just actually showing this for desktop hover states, which is cool too.
So Arsh says, can you please give us another session for portfolios?
Oh, portfolios. Ooh, I'm coming off of 2 weeks of portfolios with my last class. So that's a great idea. That's a good topic. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, Judah, if you want to coordinate that with me afterwards, that would be awesome. And then, oh, and I saw you put here also in chat, is Figma something that makes it easier to work with developers, like creating codes and stuff?
Ooh, that is a good one. So for the developers out there, yeah, this is something that we use a lot. So if I can share my Figma file, and up here I have design, then I have prototype, and then I have inspect. And that inspect panel is something that will provide your developers with really important information, like what font, what size, the CSS or the hex codes for the colors. Notice that it's all here. Those are really important. Yeah, absolutely. This is like the new way of handing off. Figma has really made an impact since working remotely. It also allows people to collaborate, which is the reason it took off so much in the last few months. Good question there too.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job. Everybody's just commenting.
Okay.
Thank you and great job. And I mean, you did a wonderful job last time too, so I'm not surprised.
Thank you everyone for coming. How exciting.
Oh, Jessica, you do have one more. Del Cash says, what grid parameters do you recommend?
Yeah, I think on the grid in terms of, let me go back here. And if I turn my little grid eye on, I usually use like either like a 6-column grid for mobile and 12 for desktop. But something, just note that the margin is really important. And to me, like, if you definitely don't want to put yourself in a situation where anything is right up against the edge. I'm trying to move that guy, you know, and you try to avoid gutters. But like what I have on my grid, and something that you can check out in your layout settings here under grid, if you click on that, it gives you the ability to actually change your grid. If you want to do, usually mobile's 4 or 6, but gutter, which is the white things in between, or the alleys between the columns, and you can even set your column width to be whatever you want. But
okay. And then you actually have got one final question here. Andrea says, it looks like she's just asking, can you make it live through Figma?
Oh, no. Yeah, you still need the development phase, which would be now taking any of this inspect information. Oops, I don't have anything selected, but there is going to need to be the engineer that plugs in this information into the staging environment and connect everything, because there's going to be probably APIs, lots of go live stuff. I wish, and who knows, that's probably coming very, very soon.
If somebody's asking it, somebody's probably already working on it.
Exactly. It's like when you think of something and Google it, and it's already there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We had a good group of you guys show up today. I mean, of course, like I said, Jessica always gives great workshops. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Judah, for coming as well. And Judah or Jessica, if either one of you have any links or resources or anything that you want to share in regards to this workshop, we'd be happy to include that in the follow-up email. But thank you so much again for this. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, girls. Thanks, Nikki and Monica, always for inviting us and all that you do for the community. We super appreciate it too.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Looking
Bye,
forward
everybody.
to
Have
the
a good
next
day.
one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.